Well, good morning. My name is Mark Lee. I install commercial doors and hardware for a living, and yes, there's enough commercial doors out there so you can spend 40 hours a week doing that. But I'll just walk you through a little bit of what I do, and I talk too much, but anyway, here we go. What you're looking at right here is your standard workhorse commercial steel door frame. It's known in the trade as a hollow metal door frame, and the reason it is because, I don't know if you can see it, but I left some of the insulation out, but the back is hollow. We're going to install this here in a wood frame wall, so I've put insulation in, also maybe to deaden some of the sound between your two rooms. If this were in a masonry wall, the door would actually be mortared right into the masonry wall. So if you see a commercial construction project, you'll see a bunch of door frames sitting, and the bricks and the block come right up to the door frame. So typically they're cold rolled steel. The gauge of the steel, most door frames are 16 gauge steel. The common door then is 18 gauge, and when you do heavier duty work, you can go 12 and 14 gauge. We're going to put this in a wood wall, so we have some reinforcing for the anchors. If you look right here, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a strap welded in here on the back side. Now I'm going to spin the door frame for you just a little bit. I don't know if we can catch this, but there's the mortise already cut out for your hinges. You notice this little piece right here on top of the steel. Remember that, and we'll hit that later on in your installation. But there's mortise out for your hinges. On this side, again, I don't know if you could see it. I'll try and turn the door frame. Here we are mortised out for the strike plate for your lock set. And then there are holes in the door, and we're going to anchor that into your wood wall with some 5-inch heavy-duty wood screws. So that's coming up. Couple other interesting things you might want to know. There's some little rubber mutes here. That just means when the door closes, you don't go bang, bang, bang against the steel frame. So one other thing you might be interested in, now I'm going to turn the door this way, and I'm going to tip it down, and I don't know if you can see, but right here, let's see, I got to take some of this insulation out, but right here, there's an extra sleeve in the top of the door, and that reinforces for a door closer. We're not going to put one on in this case, but look at the exterior doors in your school here. They all have hydraulic door closers, and that's some reinforcement for that. That all comes in the factory, or comes this way from the factory. These are just the workhorse door frames in the world of commercial doors and hardware. So how do we install this little gem? Well, first thing, I did this a little bit in advance, but you need to make sure that your door opening is big enough, width-wise, 40 inches and a little bit, 40 and a half. We're okay there because the width we have is 40 inches. And then you need to check your height. We're going to be a little tight here, but I know it'll work. We're just a little bit, let's see, should be 7'2" and a little bit for shimming, and that's exactly what we are. So now what I need to do quick, and I don't know if Crystal's going to turn the camera off, but I need to finish putting the insulation in the door. I do this on exterior doors for cold purposes. On interior doors, here it's just to deaden a little bit of the sound. So I've got to take a minute, tip the door frame down. There we go. And put the rest of the insulation in. So it's just fiberglass insulation, and I just tuck it in. It's better than having none at all, basically. So here, there we go. Okay. All right, so we've got that. Now, we'll set that aside for a minute, and then we'll take the level. And we know the door, the rough opening of the door is big enough for the door frame. So then we'll just quick to check and see how close to vertical we are. This is pretty good. This is going to be the hinge jamb because the door is going to swing out mostly for safety. So if you're working in here and you have to exit, the door swings in the path of egress. So we're pretty decent here. It's a little out. That's why you have a little extra room for shimming. Now this side is a little bit off. I don't know if you can see with the level down on the bottom, but we're going to have to watch that pretty carefully. But a couple of tricks I'll show you when we actually come to setting the frame that'll help us. We're going to have to watch that carefully because it's... Now, the other thing sometimes I do is I just check to see with my level here whether the floor is level. And I noticed there's a cut in the tile here, so I had a little piece I put in. We're a little bit low on this side. I've got some shims when we set the frame in the opening. We can put a shim underneath that to lift that up a little bit. So this is a 3-foot level. Actually, it's or rather a 24-inch level, 2 foot, I'm sorry. I use that for the head of the frame. I have another little tool here. This is called a PLS, plumb level square. And I'll show you how that works. But the tool is machined, so this is a perfect right angle here. So I can set that in the frame, the head of the frame, and I can see whether my frame head is square. Because you want everything to be plumb level and square. So now let's see. I will, I'll tip the door frame up. And then we're going to bring it over. One other thing I didn't hit, when these doors are put together in the factory, they put you can see with my foot here, the spreaders down the bottom. And that just keeps the frame a little more rigid when you ship the door or when you install it. Some installers take those out and then install the door. I always leave them in, at least for part of the install, just because it gives me a little bit of... It should be, it tells me where the bottoms of the frame should be. So now I'm going to tip the frame down like this. Now that this frame width is 7 3/4 inches, it's about 1 inch wider than your wall. So the combination, the drywall, the steel or the wood stud, and the other piece of drywall will fit into the throat of the frame, which makes it easier to get in, see, because I have to play around with things a little bit here, because I'm not quite in all the way. Here, there. Now if I lift and wear boots with soft soles, there we go. See, so now our frame is in the wall, and I'm going to push up. I'm working on the hinge side of the door here. You can see the hinge gains. And when I set the door, I always set the hinge side first, and then I set the strike side. The strike is right here. I can explain to you why, especially in a retrofit job. Now, let's see here. I need my handy dandy tool here, and I'm just going to push this insulation just a little bit. There we go. You notice there's a little bit of an inconsistency between the frame and the drywall. There's other ways to set these frames so that you can slide the drywall in behind the frame, but this will work. We'll have to do some creative trimming to cover that gap. Okay, now, next thing we've got the door sitting in the frame. This is my little step stool here. Here's my small level here. I could put this, I think you can see this. I can put this, except I can't see it, so I'm going to come on this side here. I can, yep, now we're really in pretty good shape here. Let's come look at it from this side. See, I hold my tool up close to the, right against the top of the frame, and then I can see that the frame is nice and square there. So then we're going to do this like this. I'm thinking we're going to have to lift the strike side of the door, but we'll see for sure, right? Now when I do this, yeah, just a little skidget. Yeah, maybe a 1/8 of an inch, or a 1/16 of an inch. I think for time being we're going to leave that though, just because, well, I'll show you how we work that. So now I know that I'm close enough, very close to level. Now we want to look right here like this and see. I'm looking for plumb in this direction. Not bad. Not bad. Now I wonder if I can. And then we need to be plumb in the other direction. And I need to be sure that the reveal is equal on either side. And it's kind of hard to see, I know. There. Let's see. Okay. So now I'm just about where I want to be. I'm going to do a couple things here. Here's an impact driver. I'm sure you're familiar with those.
Did you want me to record that part, or do you actually drill it in there?
Oh, well, I can just show you maybe, and then you can stop. I have no idea. I mean, you do whatever you think is best. No, I don't know. Let's see. Okay, now we're going to fasten that in with these 5-inch screws right here, like this, and I'm going to drill a pilot hole here, and I'm going to pull that tight if I can back to the stud, because most of the weight of a door is carried on the top hinge. So I want that to be really solid, and if I have to do some shimming and playing around with it, I'd rather do it down on the bottom where there isn't quite so much weight. I'm checking here, kind of eyeballing it to be sure that I'm centered in the opening. You must have put some extra studs in the wall there, but that's not a problem. Now we'll put our 3-inch screw and use the impact driver. Makes a lot of noise. There. Now I pulled that up tight to the stud, and let's see how are we looking right here. Now we have to bring the bottom in just a little bit, but if my memory is right, that stud was quite was true and plumb. Now I have to be. You can see my foot here. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Ooh. I'm stopping to think here whether I'm going to follow the wall. No, I can't follow the wall. I have to put this in plumb. Okay. Okay. Now I'm plumb in this direction, this away. And now if I'm right here, I'm plumb this way. That's really crucial because in a metal door or in a metal frame, you can't adjust the door stop. You can in a wood door, so if you're a little out, you can move the stop to compensate. You can't do that here. Okay, so I'm pretty well lined up there, plumb and true. And now I'm going to do the same thing here. drill bit is dull, by the way, just so you know. And I'll put a screw in the bottom. Now, let's see here. How do we look? Not bad, not bad. Actually, we should back that out a little bit and put a shim in there. Let's see. Let's come there. I'm gonna have to come around and get in the way of your camera just to see. Oh, I see what we did here. Okay. Okay, yeah. I see I'm tight to the stud here. I'm tight here. I may have to back that. Oh yeah, I can get at the reinforcing piece behind here. I'm going to back that away just a little tiny bit. There. First I'm going to do this right here. Good there. Now I'm going to back this off just there. And I use wood shims for this, just plain shimming shingles. You buy them from the local lumber yard. And I'm going to put that right there, just like that. It's really important on the hinge side of the door to have good solid anchoring, because that's where the weight's carried. This side can sort of float if you have to. But now let's see if that pushed that out just a little skidgen. Yep, that's better. Could come a little further. Just a little more. There. I think we can deal with that. Yep, that's good. Okay. Now I'll give it one more little love pat here. There. And then I'll just tighten this up a little. There we go. Okay. Now let's check just to see how we're looking plumb-wise this way. Not bad. Let's look down here. That's good. Now, okay. So there. Now let's look and see where on the intermediate studs I need to put a little bit of shimming in there. Just to hold that. I'm right against the there. Okay. There. And now we're going to shim. I'm shimming behind the four, 1 screw, 2 screw, 3, 4, right behind the 4 screws. Unfortunately, your wall isn't finished, so we can do some adjusting if we have to after the fact. All right, now I'm going to drill a pilot hole here. I think next job I need to sharpen my drill bit here. There we go. Okay, good. Now, we've got 2 more screws, and we've got the screw shooter. There we go. There, looks good, nice and flush. And right here. Okay. Now, I should tell you too that every person that hangs doors develops their own systems for doing things, and this is just my way. It's not necessarily the only way to do it, but it works for me. Now we're going to do two things here. Remember, we pulled this jamb up tight to the stud because it's carrying the weight of the door on that jamb. So now we've got a little bit of room over here to do some shimming. So we're going to do our shimming on the strike side. And I've got a little more room here, so I've got two shims. I'm going to slip one in behind. There we go. Okay. Nothing there. Now we're going to check. Here's our drill. I should wear my safety glasses, by the way. Bad habit. Now we're going to check to see whether the head is level. And if the one jamb is level, or the vertical is level, the horizontal isn't. If it goes down like this, when your door comes shut, it'll bang. Or if it's up like this, you won't see an even gap across the top. Now, in a retrofit job, it's very hard to be perfect, so you have to, let's see. I gotta look around this way so I can see, yeah, we're still square. Now, how are we looking for our head level? Gee, we better get this before it gets away, because that is really, really nice. Okay. One other thing we need to check, and that's to be sure that we didn't, that this jamb here and this jamb here need to be perfectly parallel. You don't want to twist them. I don't know if you could see with my hands here, twist them like this or like this, because that increases or decreases the space for your door. And 1/8 and 1/16 matter a lot in this business. So I'm going to come right here and check. Yep, I'm right on at 36. That's really good. Just out of curiosity, we can change this, but ooh, we're 36 and 1/8, maybe 36 1/4 here. So we have to remember that when we get down to the bottom. Now, the next thing, I'm going to look, since this is basically a retrofit job, I'm going to take and set the tops even with the wall. I've got, let's do it a little bit differently here. I've got a sliding T-square. I don't know what the proper name. Check with your machining teacher in the machine shop and see. But I'm just going to put that right there. Use this as a depth measuring device. See, so I know that the edge of the frame looks like 1/2 inch, because that's what the back bend on the frame is. Now I'll come here, and we've got that shimmed tight. I'm gonna come right there. Okay. Okay, now set that down. And we're gonna drill a hole right here in the top. I definitely need to sharpen my drill bit there, but we'll get through this without. Okay, here's our screw. And we're going to put that kind of, how do we look? Just kind of eyeball it. Yeah, we look really good. We're nice across, even across the top. Oops, we'll trim that later on. Okay, here we go. Now the hardest part of the job is done, we hope. Because the next thing I do is I leave this side unattached, and then I'll put the door in the frame, I'll swing the door on the hinges, and then there's a little bit of movement here. See, you can move this back and forth like this. And then what I can do is I'll close the door, have to move the camera to the other side then. This is a half an hour, 45 minutes away. And I'll slide this back and forth so that the top and the bottom of the frame match the door perfectly. In new construction, you don't do that because you set the frame first, but in a retrofit job where you use these wall anchors, you can cheat just a little bit and do that. And no wall is completely true anyway. In new masonry construction, the carpenters come around and they set the door jambs, and they use anchors. They look like this. And I don't know if you can see, but the anchor goes into the floor, and it's attached, and then the door jamb sits right up on top of it. See, so that they sit inside. That, I don't know if you can see that. Again, I'm telling you way too much. You added out what you don't like. And then you use, in masonry construction, you use an anchor that looks like this. They call it a masonry metal anchor. And all you do is you snap these pieces into the back of the frame, you spread them out so that they hook into the frame, and then you mud, you slide it down, and as you bring your block up, you put this into the block, and you put that in the mortar joint in the block, and that holds your frame true. And then the mason will probably fill the door jamb with mortar as they go up. In fact, if you turn around, if you see the door frame here in your, this is in a masonry wall, and it's mudded right into the wall. Kind of hard to see. Look at any of the exterior doors in your building here and you'll see that. So anyway, I've told you too much. So the next thing I do is I install the hinges. And there's multiple kinds of hinges. I don't know if you can see this. This is a hinge that I salvaged from a residential door that I replaced. It's got, it's very, I don't know if you could see, it's very light duty metal. It's pretty old and creaky. Here are the hinges that are going to go into your new door. I don't know if you could see the difference. The metal is substantially thicker. And look at the pins and the bearing here, how much bigger it is. These are ball bearing hinges. I'm not sure you can see. Let's see if I got one I can break out for you here. Yeah, I do. There's one right here. These are just, here, I'll set this here. But see, I don't know if you can look at, if your camera will show you this.
Yeah, the camera's pretty good.
Is that?
So it picks up everything.
Oh, it does. But see, there's a roller bearing there, right there, on the top of that leaf of hinge. See how much thicker they are? How much heavier they are than the hinge that you put in a residential door. And let's think of the number of times that the door in pick the door in your house that opens and shuts the most. Probably the door from the garage into the house, just a guess. That's the way it is at my house. That has a hinge on it like this. My house has been standing for 25 years and the door still works fine. But think of the doors in your building here and how many times in the course of a day they open. They might open 25 times in 15 minutes, not in a day. So that's why you use a much heavier duty hinge with a ball bearing. Sometimes when you have a really, even a heavier commercial door, you can use a thicker, I'm sure you can't see it, you can use a thicker hinge. See the leaf of the hinge? I can't remember the thicknesses, and you could get the micrometer in the machine shop and do it, but you can see visually the difference. You can see too that the bearings are bigger and the pin is bigger. See, the diameter of that pin is a little bit bigger. That we use sometimes in heavy doors, maybe in a hospital where there's a 4-foot door and it's lead lined so that they, to protect people in an x-ray department. That's just a thought, or just an idea of why. But, let's see here, I've got 3 hinges for you. One other thing I should tell you, and again, I can talk forever, you could do some editing here, but all the door manufacturers and frame manufacturers got together with the hinge manufacturers, and they standardized the hole pattern and the sizes of hinges. So you can buy, just like cars, you can buy Chevys and Fords and Dodges. You can buy Steelcraft, Amweld, Curry's, different brands of doors. The hinge locations from top of door, top of hinge are all different. But the spacing, when you put the hinge in the hinge gain, the whole pattern for the screws is the same the world over, at least in the United States anyway. One other thing, I don't know if you can see, and again, I'm telling you way too much. If you look at the hinge, this leaf right here is completely flat. This leaf has what they call a swage. See how it bends right there? Back into the pin. Let's see if we can see it better on this one. Yeah, here, maybe this shows you better. See, there's the flat. Here's the swage. Well, I don't know if it makes a huge amount of difference, but I always install the hinge with this bend, that swage, back on the jamb so that it pushes my door back toward the door jamb. And sometimes that means you have to, and you'll see in just a minute what you have to do to make that work. They say the hinges are reversible, which they are, or non-handed, I should say. But anyway, enough said. Let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3 hinges. They all go in with 1224 machine screws with a number 3 head. But I'm going to look, and I got the screws here in your drywall, but I'm going to put the swage back against the door frame. So anyway, I mount all 3 of my hinges. Oops, here. Gotta be careful not to drive the overdrive your screws and strip the heads, especially when you use an impactor. Right? There. Okay. There's one. Now we're going to put the other one in here. Now I don't know if you can see this, but see there's this flat backing here where my finger is, and then there's a little plate right here. That's it. We're using the lighter weight hinges, so we need that plate in there to flush the hinge out so that this is a continuous plane here. Now if we use those heavyweight hinges, then we would pry this little piece out of here, this little filler piece out, and that would set the hinge back deeper into the pocket, and it would be flush on the face because the metal on that hinge is a little thicker. All 3 of the hinges on the door, and remember we explained the swaging, and so now what I have to do, I've done it on the top and the bottom hinge already, but I have to reverse the pin so that the pin is comes in from the top, and there's a little plug here in the bottom, and I have a little tool that I can use to do that. There we go. Okay, there we be. Now we'll replace the pin in the hinge like this, and we'll put this down in the bottom. Okay, now I've got the hinges in all, 1, 2, 3 hinges here. When I work alone, when I hang a door, I always split the top hinge. I put the pin in my pocket, and then I'll bring the door over so the camera can see it a little bit better. Here, we'll come right into the, I think I can jump over these pieces for you here. Oh yeah, we can do that. There we go. There we be. Oops. I leave those in, remember, and sometimes they cause me problems. But okay, here's the door. Just quickly, This is what's known in the business as an 1 3/4 solid core wood door. It was made in a factory in Marshfield, that Marshfield door. Somebody in your building here picked the color of the stain, and it was pre-finished in the factory. Most of the wood doors we get these days are. In the old days, they used to all be pre-finished on the job site. I don't know if you can see this with the camera, but the hinge gains or the hinge mortises are already put in the door, and they should match what you have in the frame. And the hole here is already bored for the lock set. Not too many years ago, we had to do all of this in the field with jigs, and it took a lot longer to do. And they do this in the factory now with computer-guided CNC milling machines. And there's no way that we can do this in the field and be cost-effective anymore, because it only costs $10 or $15 to have the people in the factory put these mortises and pieces or cutouts in the door. So that's the door. They all come from the factory wrapped up like this, which this means you have to pull the wrapping off before you hang the door. Kind of a chore sometimes, and you got to be really careful, because if you use your knife, you'll scratch the nice finish on the door. By the way, I checked before we go. Maybe I'll embarrass myself. I don't think so. But the door is right side up. In other words, there's a top and the bottom, and I've got the bottom down and the top up. If the hinge preps on the door don't match the hinges on the frame, then we know I made a mistake and I have to take it down again. Okay. We'll push that out of the way. Now, I will grab my screw shooter here, and we got some, there we go. And let's see, now here's what I always do. I pull the door and the frame apart, and then I forget where I put the hinge piece. Spin this around just a little bit. Okay. Oh, now you can't see it, can you? There. You need to be where you can look at it. Okay. Now, maybe Carlo, you can help me. What did I do with the leaf of the hinge when I took it off there? Yeah, here's the pin. See, now a good carpenter always puts stuff back where he can remember, and he doesn't have to do this searching and looking. Oh, here it is. Where it shouldn't have been on my work cart, no problem. Okay. So now we'll put this, I left the other hinges in the frame, both leaves. I split the top hinge, and I put one leaf in the frame and one leaf in the door. I don't know if you can see, but the holes, actually, they come from the factory already pre-drilled. They have these great big fancy machines in the factory that drill the holes, which makes it really nice for us in the field. So we put the there. And here. Okay. So we've got that set. Now we got to get things staged, because now we're going to slip the door into the opening. This. First I got to get it off the cart. Okay. There we go. Let's just roll the cart back there out of the way. And we're going to turn this and set this like this. And gently, 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 gently lean that back. Okay, there. And to help me get this into the opening, I'm going to take a couple of wood shims, like this, line them up, set them down on the floor, and then I can tip the door back and slide the shims underneath the door to hold the door up, and then I can slide the door over and give it a little bit of a push. See, okay, we gotta come up just a little bit higher so I can do that. And there we go. My hinges line up. I knew where my pin is. I drop my pin in the top hinge. That'll hold the door. Now it's safe. I don't have to worry about it falling. And then I can get a screw set. And I can just gently push, push, push. The door will swing a little bit, and then I can take the hinge, and I can, I'm going to have a little bit of problem here, but nothing we can't solve. We're going to hold that like that. There we go. And that pushes the bottom. That's how, when I work alone, I can hang a fairly heavy door that way. Okay. I should tell you too while you're here that doors are standardly a 1/4 inch and less in width and 3/4 in height, less than the clear opening. So we have an opening in this frame of 36 inches. The door is actually 35.5 inches. That allows for an 1/8 of an inch on the hinge side, an 1/8 of an inch of clearance on the latch side. And then it's undercut 3/4 of an inch in height. So there's an 1/8 of an inch at the top, and that would give us 5/8 at the bottom. That allows for carpet, threshold, whatever. You can see here that I can stick my fingers in underneath the door. And now we're gonna, bingo, tap, tap. Sometimes, actually I have a rubber mallet that I should have done that with, but I didn't have to hit very hard, so we're okay. There. The hinges come with metal screws and wood screws, so you can, okay. One more. And, oh, I see I missed one down in the bottom. So we're going to put one in here. And there you go. You've got a door in a frame. Now, remember we didn't anchor the bottom of the frame on this side. So now what we can do, let's see here. I may have to do a little cutting here. Nope, it's okay. Aha! Oh, forgot one thing. Got to tap, tap, tap this pin the rest of the way down. Okay. Now, hey, this isn't too bad. Look here. We have a fairly even margin across the top. It's a little bit more here, but not bad, all things considered. And we have a nice margin here. Now we can shim the frame and pull that in to even our margin between the frame and the door out. We have a good margin on this side here. If we didn't, sometimes the door is hinge bound, and this one is pretty good. Pretty good. See, now in theory you should be able, now I don't know because it's a retrofit job, but we should be able to open the door and it should stop in any position. If it's not hung completely level, it won't do that. So we're good. Whomever framed in the wall did a really nice job, because we basically, remember, we checked that wall for plumb, and then we followed that wall, the wall on the hinge jamb over here, with our frame. So I don't know who framed the wall, but you did a good job. Thanks. Made my life a lot easier. Okay, so now we're going to anchor the bottom of the frame. And I'm going to get some shims here. I got a bundle of them back here. I don't know if you'll be able, if you want to move your camera to the inside to see what I do next here, because you'll want to look right down at the bottom of the. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Okay. Now let's be sure we have all the right tools. And we've got shims, and we've got the screws. Remember, we use these 5-inch wood screws. Here's our impact driver, and we better get the drill over here. Okay. There we go. Now we're going to put some shims behind. I think I'll start right here. We've got a fairly good sized gap right here. So let's try. I got a bucket of shims. I got some Oddbird stuff. That's a piece of 1/2 inch. Let's see. We can cut these off afterward, but well, let's use this 1/2 inch right here. And we'll use this one here because it's, and then we'll put a shim here, and we'll come in from the back. There we go. Okay. Now, actually, I guess you can, well, we'll see. I'll show you how we do this. See, now I'm going to swing the door shut and look up at the top. And I want the door to hit evenly along the frame. I'm tight right here, but right up here, I'm away. It's not bad, just a little teeny tiny bit. Now remember I told you I wore soft-soled shoes? I'm just going to tap that with my heel. And now I'm going to close the door again. And I'm going to just look at that. And I have, ooh, that's just the way I like it. See, so the door sits in the jamb. That's really good right there. Okay. We could come just a hair further there. Okay. Good. Now, sometimes I take a pencil so that if I mark that, so if I disturb things when I drill and screw. Okay, now I'm going to drill my hole for my screw. Be really gentle. Battery is running out just a little bit in the drill, I can tell. I've got another one in the charger, so okay, here we go. There. Now I'm not going to snug that up real hard because I want to come over on the other side, and again, you probably won't be able to see this, but I want to be sure that I have a nice margin on the door. We can come back with the camera later and see that. Okay. Yeah. Now, actually, what I need to do here is back this out, and then I need to tap with my shims. I'm pushing the door to even my margin up on the back side here. Oh, I still have to come a little bit more. Okay. That tells me I think I better cut my spacers out of the bottom because those weren't cut exact in the shop. They're really, really close, but I need to push the door in a little bit, and these are holding me out. Here's how I do that. I take a shim, because you've got a finished floor here. Maybe you're going to put carpeting on it, I don't know, but I need to do that. And I have a die grinder here. I'm looking around just to see. I don't see any smoke detectors because there'll be just a little bit of flame, not flame, but there'll be sparks, and I don't want to set off the smoke detector. I think we got electricity right here. Yep. We do? Okay. Now for this, I'm going to use my safety glasses. You'll see. There we go. Okay. And now all I'm going to do, these are just tack welded into the bottom of the frame. So if you're really, really gentle, you can do this like this. And just back and forth and get that out of there. And back and forth. Okay. You have to be careful here because you don't want to bend the bottom of your door frame when you do that. Okay. Now I can tell that that's, I'm just going to take a quick look and see. Oh yeah, that's going to help us out. Very much, very much. Okay. Now we're going to do the other one. Those, remember I told you they just put those in for shipping to make it easier to handle the door frames and to keep them from twisting and bending. If you do that, you may break the welds up in the head of the door frame. There we go. There. Yeah. There. We're not completely anchored in, so that frame moves just a little bit. There. And here. Okay. I wear knee pads all the time too. Until a few years ago I didn't, but at the end of the day my knees were so sore when I don't wear them. Okay, now I'm going to close the door and check to see. Okay. Boy, we're really nice. Pretty close. Now I have to back this out just a little bit so I can push these shims in. I don't know if you look back at the video, remember when we measured down here, we had about 40 and a quarter up on the top, and we were like 40 and 5/8 on the bottom. So that's why we have the thicker shims down here. And they look pretty horrific, but eventually we'll cut those all off, and then there'll be a piece of trim that you'll have to do something like this, see, to cover up the gap there. Okay, let's see how we're doing this way now. Let's look and see. Oh, we are getting really close. Just a little skidge more. Sometimes I shim it in just a little too far, so when I put the anchor in, I can snug it up just a little bit. In the door business, you don't pound many nails, so you can use a little teeny tiny hammer. My residential friends in the carpentry business laugh at me, but I don't pound very many nails anymore, so. Okay. Boy, that looks really, really good. So we're just going to do this. Whoops. Now that's snugged in just a little bit. Let's take a look, see how we're doing on this side. We have a nice margin. And now we're going to take a look here. And we're going to see, remember, we want to hit, the door has to hit the frame top and bottom all in the same plane, all at the same time. We're just a little bit out, but not enough to be real worrisome. We may be able to pull that in just a little bit with that bottom anchor, but we're really, really good at this point. Yeah, we're really good at the top center. We have to push the bottom just a little bit. Okay. The door swings nicely. In the old days, the carpenters used to say a nickel and a dime. You put a, pardon me, you should be able to slide a nickel between the top of the door and the top of the frame, and a dime on this side, and a nickel or a dime on this side. I can't remember. That's way before my time in the business. And So, okay, so now we're really in quite good shape. We're going to take some more shims, and we're going to see if we can, let's see. Yeah. We have 4 anchors on each side, remember? So now we're just going to shim this. There, that looks pretty good. We're right centered. Okay, there. Okay. Now on the bottom, it tells me we're going to need one of these. That's 1/2 inch or 7/16. This is 3/4. So yeah, we're going to need to. I just carry a bunch of odds and ends in the here. Let's see. There's a piece of cedar. That's probably not what we want. Let's just do this. We use this piece right here. There. Okay. Now we'll put a shim in here. And then we're going to slip this guy right here and lift this up so that we're centered on the. There we go. Okay. I have a little saw we'll use, and we'll cut those all off flush with the wall before we're finished. And let's see here. We got this. My little hammer here. Okay. Now I have to close the door and be sure that I still have good margin. Okay, I'm a little too. Good thing we did that. Got to take this back just a little skidgen here. Okay, let's see how that does. All right. Okay. Now I think we should be just about perfect here. We're going to come a hair more. No, we're probably too much. We're going to come just like that. Okay. Got the door shut. There. That is just like downtown, right there. Little tap. Okay. And now we're going to hold those shims. Ooh. There we go. Okay. There's the. Oh, we gotta get that as well. Let's get this taken care of first. All right. Sometimes on these 5-inch screws, you can put a little bit of soap on them, a little bit of beeswax that makes them go into the wall a little bit easier. This is fairly new and soft wood, so we don't have too much trouble. I'm going to put my knee just a little bit. There we go. All right, now we're going to close the door one more time. Yes, I like what I see very much. Very nice. And now we're good here. I'm going to drill this and put the screw in here. Okay, and here we go. Excellent. Now, let's see here, we're going to do this like this, and then just check. Okay, yes, we're very good. The door hits nice and evenly here. Everything is in the same plane. maybe you can move your camera. I'll move my mess out of the way, but if you can slip your camera back in, we'll look. We're good here. Everything's nice. Door opens a little on its own. That means it's not perfectly plumb, but I think we can deal with that. Now let's see how our margins look on the other side, and then we're at a beautiful stopping point, since I think you have to go to lunch or other. But now we just want to be sure when the door is closed, and I do this by eye, but we want to look at the margin. Remember, we looked at the top margin a few minutes ago. We're pretty decent here. You're your own worst critic often. Could be, we could lift the door a little bit, but look at the edge here. That's the key. That's why we put these shims in, remember, so we have a nice even margin there. And we do, and we're putting something into a kind of a retrofit situation, so we've done a really good job of compromising between plumb and square. Well, I shouldn't say it's the door is square to the frame, and it's plumb. If it weren't plumb, you couldn't put your finger on it and stop it. The door would swing open by itself. So that's what you want. You want to be able to put the door like this and have it sit and stay. And if the door were tipped like this back, gravity would swing the door. So we know we have the door and the frame in, plumb, square, true. Now the next step, and you probably don't want to tape all this, is I'm going to take my saw and I'm going to cut out all of the shims here. And once we have that done, the installation will look a lot neater. And from there, then we move into putting on the locking hardware, the closing hardware, and any other hardware that you have on the door. So the door and the frame are basically completely installed. The next step on the project is really easy, and that is to trim off all of the shims. I've got most everything trimmed off, but this is the last one. I use one of these Dremel Multi-Max tools with a vibrating blade. Makes a horrible noise. Usually I wear my earplugs, but I'll cut this last one off, then we'll install the lock set. There you go. I'm just going to set this off to the side. Take my earplugs out. But now, one more time, we'll swing the door closed and get a look at it so we didn't disturb anything. No, the door closes easily, stays closed a little bit there. But no, look again at the margins. We're good. We could be up a little here, but that's livable. And we have a nice clean margin all the way along the latch side of the door. So we swing, you've got a door installed and a frame installed. So the next thing normally I do is install the lock set, and then I move on to the other hardware after that if they're door closers or whatever. But remember, we explained earlier that the door comes from the factory pre-bored. It's bored with a round hole. All the manufacturers make their locks the same diameter. That's a 2 1/8 hole. And normally the distance from the edge of the door to the center, that's called the back set, and that's 2 3/4, sometimes 2 3/8. But most often the back set on the lock, the distance between center and edge of door is 2 3/4 of an inch. So there's more kinds of lock sets than there are just about anything else. Just to give you a rough idea, I don't know if you can see this with the camera, but I brought a couple along just to show you. This is an older style residential grade lock set. See, then you put the two pieces together, and then you screw it together. But just look at the housing and the guts and the drive shaft here on the axle. It's not really very beefy, but remember, this goes into a residence, and remember how many times the main door in your house opens versus how many times a door in a school opens. So that's a kind of a residential or a light duty lock set. Then you can go to something a whole lot bigger and beefier. This is a medium grade commercial lock. This is the one we're going to put on here. It's a lever lock for ADA accessibility, so if people don't have, they can't squeeze to twist a knob, they can push it, they can pull it. It's ADA accessible. So this is a medium duty lock. Now you can hardly tell the difference. They make a heavy duty commercial lock as well. And basically all it is the guts in the lock are beefier. Something kind of interesting, when the ADA came into effect, the Americans with Disabilities Act, a few years ago, until that time, most buildings used knob locks. In fact, here's a great example. I don't know what date your school here was built, but this has a knob trim on the lock. You have to grab it and twist, and not everybody has that ability if you have some damage to your hands or some disability. The other interesting thing, this is a mortise lock. Just show you the difference here. Here's the box right here. This is even beefier than the board or cylindrical locks, but you can see there's a box right here. This is what it looks like, and that's mortised into the edge of the door, and then you can see the holes here where there's an axle, and then the knob trim goes on. These are probably the Cadillac of lock sets. They're also quite expensive. Most people these days use the cylindrical or the board lock set. They're just a little bit less expensive, but if you really want to go with the Cadillac, you go with a mortise lock. So whomever designed and built your school here originally did a really nice job. That's a Sargent mortise lock. It's a very good quality lock, probably last another 10-15 years. So anyway, that's the three kinds of locks. And locks have all kinds of different functions. The lock we're going to put on here is what they call a passage lock. It doesn't, basically it's a latch set, not a lock, because you can't lock the door. But then there's multiple kinds of ways to lock doors. There's many different keys that you can use. So I won't even get into that. But I would mention here with the ADA, that's where I got started. When they changed to a lever handle lock, you can get a ton of torque on a lever lock. And what they found out was that these lighter duty lock bodies were just getting ripped to shreds in a very short time. So they had to completely redesign and make the lock body much heavier. And that's why you have these. Whoops, I gotta pull the whole thing apart by accident here. That's why you have these stud holes right here and here, and that prevents you from jamming the lock down and spinning the whole body in the door. So just a word to the wise. Now let me see, did I mix this up? Oh, this is the one you guys we're going to install here for you. Okay. Now, first thing, remember the door is already pre-bored, so the first thing we normally do is slip the bolt into the hole, check to see that it's long enough. Sometimes take your trusty little hammer. I should use a rubber mallet here. Tap, tap, tap gently to get that bolt into the edge prep. 2 screws. Usually you can drill about an 1/8-inch pilot hole. 1. There's the second one. There we go. Okay. Now, I should have taken this all apart, but in every lock they send you a package of hardware. They also send you the instructions. Now I suppose I should read those, but I've installed literally hundreds of these, so except now I'll make a goofy mistake and I'll have to sit down and read the instructions. Here are the 2 screws for the latch bolt. We'll use the impact driver again. There. here. There we go. Nice and free. Now, let's see. Okay. Oh, I got this twisted just a little bit. I'll have to put this back together again. It'll only take me just a sec. There we go. Okay. I'll put it together so that you can see from the camera side, but here's one half of the lock set. You can see the little piece right here. I don't know how much you can see, but when you turn that, that pulls back, and that's what draws the bolt together. You can see the two studs. They go into the holes here. So you slide that in from the back. Now the key thing is to check. I'm going to point out right here to be sure. I don't know if your camera will show you this, but you have to be sure that everything is properly lined up, which fortunately it is. That means that the CNC machine in the factory, when they drilled this, did the right job. There's a backer plate that goes on, just like this right here. Okay. And then this is the inside trim right here. That slips right over the top. Lock sets are, at least in this, pretty easy to put in. That slips in. We've got two screws. They go right through into the, there we go. And this one. Now sometimes you have to be careful here because you can, if you tighten these up, whoops, with your power driver, you can over tighten these and squeeze the guts of the lock together, and it won't work very well. So gentle is the name of the game here. Actually, when I do a lot of lock set installs, I have a smaller screwdriver that I use. Okay, sometimes then I just check it here with the hand driver just to see. Okay. There. You can't see it from the camera, but the back side of the lock here. Let me spin the door open so you can look. Let's see. You can see the bolt is free, handle is free, no problem. Okay. Now this little piece is the trim. It's called the rose. Why I don't. But that just slips on here. There's a little indent here that slips into an indent in the door, and then you just give it a little bit of a twist. There you go. Now last thing, a little different. I think you can see it, but there's a little, if you turn the camera and you look right there, see there's a little piece that's under spring tension. Let's see if I can point it out with my, right there, that little, okay, that corresponds with this little teeny tiny hole. I don't know if you could see that right there in your handle. So the handle goes on like this, and then you take, I usually just use it, if I've got it here, a straight bladed screwdriver, and you have to push that little piece down and slip the handle over it. Give it a little bit of a tap. Whoops, see, that didn't seat properly. Actually, I should get my rubber mallet and give that just, it's in the other room here. There. I'll take the rubber mallet, and there's a gasket back in there, but if I do that, yeah, I can tell, I can see. There's no way the camera's going to show that. But now, yep. Now if you want to take it off, many lock sets are different. This is a Schlage. They give you this little teeny tiny tool, a wire piece on the end. Well, you put that in this little hole right here, and you push, and that depresses the little piece here, and the lock slips, the handle slips right off, and now it's back on again. Okay. Now notice there's no cylinder on either side, so this is just a plain passage lock. If you'd wanted to lock one side or the other, you would have a cylinder and a key in there. Then last step in lock set installation is to put the strike plate on. This is again pretty easy. I'm going to come this way. But there's remember we looked at the frame when we put the frame on. There was already the mortise in the frame. And this frame and the door were preset in the factory. So the center line of the lock set here should match the center line of the stripe. So, and they cut these out with dies in the factory, so they're quite accurate. You can cut them on site if you have to with a die grinder, and then you have to weld reinforcements in, and it gets to be kind of a difficult situation. You can't do as nice a job as they do in the factory. But 2 screws. There you go. There. Here. There. Just like that. In you go. One other thing, now we're basically done. There's a covering here. I'm going to leave that on. That's so that when you paint the door, it just saves you having to mask off the stripe plate. Okay, so now let's just check and see when we close the door. Perfect. It closes and latches. Snaps into place just like it should. There's just a teeny tiny bit of play there, which is good, because if you have too much, if you have to push the door hard to get the bolt to go into the latch, then sometimes you have to force the handle. That creates problems. So, but that's just the way it should be. There you go. So you've got the door. Now I wonder, you might think about putting a bump plate on the wall here. I don't have one with me, but that would be a good idea so that you don't make a mark every time the door hits the wall back here. So, in a nutshell, there you do. Frame, door, lock set. Sometimes we install door closers. Now I'll quick do that, just show you a little bit about it, and then you've basically seen a door installation. That would be the next step. Now, there isn't a closer ordered for this door, but if there were, remember when we put the frame on, we showed you, we flipped the frame down and you looked and you saw the X sleeve was already welded in here to reinforce for the closer shoe that would be mounted here. But door closers come in all kinds of shapes and sizes and designs here. Well, I shouldn't say all kinds. There's 3 basic ones. Now these are just old ones that I had on the truck. They're not nice and new. This is a utility grade door closer. It's the lightest duty. It's got the inside of here, there's some springs and pistons, so when you open the door, you compress the spring. When you release the door, as the spring goes back to the home position, it pushes around some hydraulic fluid inside of the casing here, and that dampens the spring, controls the return. You know, in your old screen door, you open the door, you let it go, and it goes ka-womp, closed. This is exactly the same principle, except there's hydraulics dampening that spring and controlling the close. This is a utility grade closer. I don't know if you can see, look at the size of it. Then the next thing, you have a mid-grade closer, and it has a bigger, it's bigger. There's a longer spring tube, a heavier duty spring. There's more hydraulic fluid, bigger pistons inside. This would be for a low use door. This is a medium use door. And then you can have something even heavier duty. This is what they call a heavy duty or a grade 1 door closer. And again, notice the difference. Here's the mid-grade, here's the heavy grade. See the difference in the diameters of the spring tube? See the difference in the sizes of the carcass, so that the shaft is bigger, all the pieces are bigger. Now, just to give you an idea, I think I have the rest of the pieces. Yeah. On the top of the shaft, or the top, the shaft here, the arm slips in like this. And let's see, I can't remember what. Yeah, so when you, whoops, I don't have this. But when you open the door, basically you compress the spring, and then the hydraulics control the return to the home or the closed position. I don't know if you can see it real quick. We're going to run out of time and electricity here. Hi, Dave. But every door closer has 1, 2, 3 adjustments. the one that's by itself is always the back check. And that actually, that at the end of the open cycle of the door, when the door is just before it hits fully open, it hydraulically slows the door down. And it prevents it from maybe banging against the wall or what have you. These other two, one is the main speed or sweep speed, and the other is the latch speed. So you can, the main speed, I'll show you on the door here, is from 90 degrees all the way up to about 10 or 15 degrees. Then depending on the conditions that you have in your building, you can slow the door down so it doesn't bang shut. Or if you have a lot of air pressure coming into the building, you can speed it up so that it closes and latches. But basically every door closer has those three adjustments. And again, we didn't put one on here, but if you want to know a little something about door closers, look at the exterior doors on your building. I noticed those are all grade 1 heavy-duty door closers. So really, well, there's two other things. I was going to say we're just about finished. There's a couple other things I'm just going to show you here quickly. I'm going to go on, and the next thing I'm going to do is close the door and install these pieces. I don't know. This is sound seal. There's an extruded aluminum body, and there's a neoprene seal, and that's going to sit here. We'll do it this way so you can see. It's going to be screwed to the door frame, and it's going to come up just like this. Let's show you right here so you can see better. And that the door will close tight against that seal. And since this is a studio, and the control room, you may have a lot of noise in here. You want to quiet in your control room, or vice versa. That seals up the gap between the door and the frame, prevents the transmission of sound. You're also going to have an auto door bottom, and that sits right here and does the same thing on the floor, and it closes the gap that you have between the bottom of the door and the floor, and again, that prevents sound transmission. These are just anodized aluminum pieces. The screws adjust the neoprene seal against the door. So all I have to do is measure the width of the frame across the top, get out the saw and cut this, and then this is screwed. Whoops, I got it backwards. You got to have the neoprene toward the door, and then you screw that. You close the door and you screw this in. So you have a head piece, you have two side pieces, and then down on the bottom you have what we call in the business an auto door bottom. Just to give you an idea, here's what it looks like. You cut that to the width of the door, you screw it to the bottom of the door, and when the door closes, it pushes this little piece here. I don't know if I can push it against the bulletin board, but see, it pops this piece down, and it seals the bottom against the bottom of the door to the floor. So that's called an auto door bottom. Those are the last three pieces that I have to put on, and that'll take a few minutes of cutting and piecing, but it just gives you a bit of an idea. So there's door installation 101, and I've told you way too much. Thanks, and have a good day.